Namaste. I have said that the entirety of spiritual practice and spiritual progress is in the spine. It's interesting that the lower forms of life don't really have a spine. But as you come up to the vertebrate, then you see the soul beginning to become individualized. It's always been individualized, but it becomes clearly so, more self-conscious as it grows. And after a certain number of lives, 5 to 8 million, as I said, you reach the human level. Now, progress up to that point is automatic. But once you reach the human level, then is introduced the reality of free will. How much free will do we have? You know, I went to the Bhagavad Gita many years ago, and it told me that, well, it said that I went to two different ones. The first one spoke about my having been born in Karachi in another life. And in the next one, it said I've already given him a reading in my Yoga Valli, as it said. And it said a person has many lifetimes ago, back in the days of Kurukshetra. He was the ruler of a small kingdom, and he was worried about getting on the wrong side in the battle of Kurukshetra. That means probably he was living near the Kauravas. Anyway, he gave his kingdom to his son and went out into the forest and took initiation from a guru. And so, long ago, I was already seeking. It takes a long time to come out of this Maya. But what is that freedom of will? If Bhrigu, writing perhaps in Treta Yuga long ago, was able to go forward in time and to say these things, well, of course, I don't know what I was then, maybe. To a certain extent, yes, I do. But in this life, he said he was born in Romania, grew up in America. His father named him James. Nobody knew my first name was James. They all knew that the name I was known by was my second name, Donald. He said he has brothers, but no sister is possible, although one sister will die in his mother's womb. Well, I had never heard that my mother had had a miscarriage. But when I went home to America from India, I asked her, and she said, yes, she had had one miscarriage. So I assumed that was the sister. It said that he will meet his guru, whose name is Yogananda. His name will become Kriyananda. It told me about many things in the future, good and bad. They've all come true. What kind of free will can I have that somebody thousands of years ago could say that you will do this on this day? Somebody told me that he went to the Bhagavad Gita. He lives in Los Angeles, but he went back to India and went to it, and it said that there were 2 times that he went. One, or he and a friend of his. This friend of his was on the train to Hoshiarpur, and there were several other people on the same carriage for Hoshiarpur. When he went to the Bhrigu Sangita, he saw all the people in that same carriage who were intended to go to Hoshiarpur. And the reading says that this devotee of mine has come from a far-off country, and I think it named the country, and it said that I have called other devotees to come here and greet him. And he named the people in the order in which they were seated on the floor in that Pandit's kutir, or whatever it was. And he said to me that the man said to me, another time I went there, and he said, while this is being read out, there will be a thunderclap. Well, the sky was completely blue, and yet just then there was a thunderclap. Did this mean Bhrigu came forward and created that thunderclap? I don't know. But I'll say there's something mighty fishy going on up there. Time doesn't exist. And your free will is not the freedom to decide which color tie you're going to wear. Impossible as it may seem, this can be known. But you have the free will to accept God or to reject him. That much freedom you have. And man exercises that freedom, and it is not foreordained when he will find God, except in the overall, because God being omniscient, how can God know in his omniscience? Because there's one thing that pushes us forward always, that constant need for Satchidananda. And he would know when we are ready to really do that. Nonetheless, it has to be left to our will. And so how much free will do we have? That much, yes. And so you can rise or you can fall. You have to put your free will into this path. You can't wait for God to do it. You can't just call it kismet or something. You must want Him. You must be the one to separate those curtains so the sunlight can come in. And too many people in India tend to be passive when it comes to spiritual grace. I know this same Bengali friend of mine used to be too lightheaded and lighthearted and joking all the time. My guru said to him, you must learn to be serious. Don't keep everybody just frolicking and laughing. And this friend of mine said, but sir, I want to change, but how can I do so without your blessings? Well, whenever I've told that story in India, they said, oh, what a beautiful answer. My guru said, no, it's your blessings that are there. God's blessings are with you already. My blessings are with you already. It's your blessings that are lacking. You have to make the effort. Don't think that God will do that except if you open it up for Him. Yes, it's He who gives you grace. Pray for devotion and He will give it to you, but you have to do the praying. Pray for His love, He will give it to you, but you have to do the love, the praying. There's that song my guru sang, Mukti dete pari, mukti dete pari, mukti dete pari, bhakti, bhakti dete pari koi. The Divine Mother singing to the devotee, I can give you even liberation, freedom, but don't ask my love and devotion, because if I give that away, I give everything away. The meaning of that song, obviously, is ask for my love. But if you ask for it, He can give it to you. If you hold yourself closed, you know you have an empty cup. If you turn the cup upside down, how can He fill it? You have to turn it upside down, right side up. You have to open yourself, open your heart to God. That's your job. But you know, only you can make that decision. And the thing is, you can also fall. And that is a sad thing, but it's a truth. If you can rise, why not fall? Yes, of course you can fall. And it is true that people do fall. If they live animalistically enough, they can become an animal again. You've heard of stories, for example, of horses with a vocabulary of 100 words. They're fallen people. There's a very strange story that came out of Tibet of a lama who wanted to violate a young woman. And she's strong, and he was an old man, and she pushed him away. She ran back to her mother and told her, and her mother said, but he's a high lama, and he may have had some reason behind this. And so she went back and said, well, what can I do for you? He said, never mind, I'm not interested. His lama so-and-so had fallen so far that he was going to be an animal, and I was trying to give him a human birth. But now two asses copulated in a nearby field, and he'll be reborn as an ass. These are strange stories that you find on the spiritual path, but they are true. And you can fall for one lifetime. This is the thing. It isn't that reincarnation, as many Westerners think, that in this life you're they say, don't step on that spider, it may have been your mother. That's not the truth. You can't suddenly become an insect or something. You'll be yourself. Whoever you are now, that's what you carry with you. But if you act like a pig, you'll become a pig. If you act like an ass, you'll become an ass. If you act like a tiger, you may become a tiger. But it'll only be for one lifetime. Then you come back to this present stage again. So one lifetime isn't so bad, is it? Well, but you do it again, you become an animal again. And here's the rub. If you keep on sinning, if you keep on acting in a very low way, then you can be thrown down many, many, many notches. You can become a germ even. And that's not a happy state. To know that you don't belong in that body, to know that you are more, to know that you have a much higher potential, and to have to come up through all those millions of lives. This universe is hell as well as heaven. It's a charnel house. Don't get caught. It's enough to be afraid of everything in a sense. But if you love God, it says in the Bible, perfect love casteth out fear. When you love God, nothing can touch you. But until then, oh, there are so many dangers on the path. It's terrible to contemplate. Think of being down on that level. And yes, that spider may not have been your mother, but maybe in some life, who knows? There are whole galaxies. There are three gunas, Sattva, Raja, and Tamo. There are whole galaxies that are basically tamasic, whole galaxies that are basically rajasic, others that are basically sattvic. We're living in a rajasic galaxy. People think more in terms of I and mine and ego involvement and getting things for themselves and so on. And in any galaxy, there can be those people who are born there to help raise them, and there can be those people who are more highly evolved. But the basic overall tendency is Rajos. And what about the Tamasic galaxies? There you have cannibalism and all sorts of horrible creatures and diseases. And there are many strange things Yogananda told in his description of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And one was this, that great epidemics that come into this world are often clouds of these evil souls coming from a Temasek Universe. Mind you, the galaxy in time, in space, is very far from here. But right now, in reality, the farthest galaxy is no farther away than you are right now, or than this camera is into which I'm reaching you. And so the distance of that galaxy has no bearing on it. Clouds of these evil souls will be born into this world, bringing epidemics. And this world is so different from what science tells us. I asked my Guru once, he said to me, we are now living in Dwapara Yuga. Dwapara Yuga is the age of energy. It is not what is classically thought in India as this being still Kali Yuga. It has all the marks of Dwapara Yuga now. All the energy, the electricity, electrons, everything. It's all of this age. We entered Dwapara Yuga proper in 1900. And since then, the modern world has been created. We're living in a very different age from Kali Yuga, but that's not my discussion here this evening. Or I should say this morning, whatever time you're watching. That what you must understand is that in the different yugas, mankind becomes more and more enlightened. The rays from the universe send energy to him. In that energy, he becomes more aware, more intelligent. People become taller. They live longer. They live quite a bit longer than they did when I was young. When I first came to India in 1958, I was a head taller than everybody in Connaught Circus in Delhi. Now I look at them, most of them are taller than I. People are getting taller. They're growing older, dying older. And they're much more bright. They're much more intelligent. We're definitely on the upswing. But I asked my Guru this question. I said to him, those who are here now, will they be born in this world also in Satya Yuga, or Krita Yuga as it's also called? He said, oh no. He said, there are many galaxies with life on them. This is just one little mud ball of a planet. There, life is teams throughout the universe. In fact, somebody told me, he said, but I never heard him say it personally, that even the sun has life and the bodies are made of gas. But there's life everywhere. There's consciousness everywhere. Everything is a part of the dream of God. Everything is consciousness. And so that reality is that you're drawn to this planet during an age that is compatible to yours. But in another age, a higher age, you'll go to another planet, maybe another galaxy. And you have been in many, many galaxies. But here's the interesting thing he said to me. He said, otherwise, they would find out too soon. Now that's kind of a horrifying thought, isn't it? You think God wants us to come back, but he's not wanting us to come back too soon. In other words, he wants us to know that we want to come back. He wants us to decide by our own discrimination, and not just because we've seen a place so many times it begins to become familiar to us. We've been through earth situations so often that we begin to say, oh, I know all that. No, he's not going to make it easy for us. We have to make the effort. And so you're drawn to those levels where your own gunas, your own mental qualities take you. What about the sattvic galaxies? In those, there's a very small tie. You know, in the Bible it says, it speaks of space as a distinct vibration. My Guru explained that space is a vibration separating the astral world, the world of energy, from this material world. In those galaxies where there's only sattvic consciousness, they can see the astral world. They can pass back and forth between it. But to become free, you still have to have a physical body. So anyway, in this evolution that we're going through, remember, you must make the right effort. You can fall as far as you want to. You can do it repeatedly. And who knows if we haven't done that? The endlessness of this cycle of incarnations is a terrifying thing. And yet once you're out of it, and this is the beauty of it, nobody who has ever found God has ever said, "What a scam." They've all said it was absolutely worth it. And they've had nothing but bliss in the memory of all that past suffering. They've seen it wasn't suffering. All the things they learned, they've understood it as God sees it. God sees this world as a playground. You and I don't see it. But it is Leela. It's a play. And we are all playing in it. And when we wake up from it, we see that's all that ever was. We're His children, playing with mud pies for a while, and then playing with gold, and then knowing He is I. Bless to you.